Sweet balls of fire. Welcome to the Abyss, everybody. It's a brand new episode this week.
Yeah.
Before Cleet goes off
ready?
on a tangent.
Okay.
I am ready. It's snowing again. Every time I come to your house, it's snowing.
Time to get
my house,
spooky.
it's all clear, and I come into fucking Snowville.
I told you, because of my personality.
Every time. Yeah, your personality is just cold and bitter. But we're drinking a new beer called Bell's Fury. It's a red ale from Talisman Brewing Co. You always take the first sip, and I always look for your expression. How is it?
It tastes a little bit like that dirt beer we had, but not as bad.
Okay, yeah, it's not as bad.
It's not great. I mean, like it's slightly under average.
It's edible.
If it was a man, it would be
It's
5'6".
Oh wow. Yeah. Well, you just how tall are you?
5'7".
You're 5'7". You just put it an inch below
I'm
you.
exactly average.
Nice.
Probably.
I'm 6'2".
Depends on the country you live in.
6'2".
actually.
Did you watch any new scary movies?
No, I didn't.
Good.
Didn't at all.
Yeah. We're watching the new True Detective, Night Country. It's okay. It's the 4th season. The first one was my favorite. Second one sucked. Third one was okay. This one's okay.
I watched a TikTok of the guy who fakes the interviews or whatever it was, and I've only seen a couple of his episodes, but he's so funny. It was like he was clearly in a car driving for an interview, and I always think, like, what if I was interviewing that guy? Like, are you in a fucking car delivering and or driving? And the lady's like, "Are you driving?" He's like, "No, I'm parked. And then he starts moving again, and
The
then,
blinker goes off.
and then he like rolls down his window and he's like, "I'll have a fish sandwich." It's like, "Are you ordering food?" No.
Yeah,
It's so
it is that
funny.
same guy.
It's so funny.
Yeah, I think he did one on the toilet, and he kept flushing repeatedly.
There's no way.
And the lady is like, "Yeah, we're not continuing."
I flush away the competition.
Yeah, that's funny.
I put the shit away.
What are we, a horror podcast or a funny podcast?
Why-
Because they can't coexist.
Why do you look pissed?
Keep in your lane, Cleet.
Oh, okay, my bad.
So this week, we're going to be talking about some stories online about the creepiest thing you've ever seen in the middle of nowhere.
I'll tell you, that like speaks to me, because if you've ever just been in such a desolate place where you can't see civilization, get spooky, man. Especially at night.
Get spooky.
Get
huh?
spooky.
I don't know if I've really been in a place middle of nowhere that I can think about. I mean, I've been camping several times. I guess
Camping's
you
probably
could
the
count
closest.
that.
Yeah, but like I would say, like, imagine like you're driving over to like Windover.
Oh, yeah, when
there's
you're
a lot of
driving,
nothing.
sure.
But like if you were to go out there,
Get
in
out of
that
your car, go
wasteland
walk, yeah.
for a while, like a long while, you'd have to like go on a road that's kind of like a dirt road. That'd be creepy.
I feel like when we go to the Clown Motel, I feel like that's pretty much in the middle of nowhere. I feel like we're going to be pretty damn close.
Yeah, just I think we're only 36 subs away. I don't know, 500 on YouTube. So if you're listening to us there, please subscribe. We're getting really close.
Getting very close to some spooky clown shit with a Ouija board and lots of alcohol.
This one is from Deleted. Was DJing a wedding in a little prairie village about 100 kilometers from my city. Packed everything up once things wound down, and was the last one out of the venue at 3 a.m. Started to drive toward the highway and saw a big orange glow emanating from the other side of a ridge on the other side of the railway tracks. Decided to check it out, as it was so even and smooth.
It's them aliens.
I had never seen a light like that before. Was thinking it might be some huge bonfire for the wedding's after party. Had to drive up 1 or 2 kilometers to cross the tracks and crest the ridge. And once I did, the light was still off on the horizon. Drove towards it for a few kilometers, but it didn't seem to be getting any nearer. Decided it wasn't a bonfire, and I didn't want to get myself into trouble, so I turned around and headed back to the city 50 kilometers later. I got to the main highway, so I decided to look back, and the light was just as big in the sky as it was back in the village. It's fucking following him, man. It's fucking following him.
Yep.
Looking at the news the next day, I found out what happened. A few underground natural gas storage tanks had ruptured and combusted.
Oh, Jesus.
Which caused an absolutely massive fire where there was no option but to let it burn until the fuel ran out. Ended up burning for 3 or 4 days. Would have been okay had I drove on to see the fire, but probably just as well that I didn't. It was very weird and ethereal seeing that light. It had such a quiet might to it, and it was drawing me in like a moth. That's crazy.
It's a fire, huh? This is from Araco Rhino. A girlfriend and I took a 2-week road trip last year and backwoods camped, hiked the entire time. Bit of an insight, I'm also a girl. 2 20-some-year-olds out on the road. We got to one free campsite in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, and we were the only people there, which is not unusual. So we just take the first spot and set up. As we make dinner, a couple pulls in, drives by, and heads to the back of the campgrounds. No idea how far back it went. Roughly 20 minutes later, they come back by and flag me down. There's a girl who says, "Have you guys been back there?" "No. It's like a massacre back there."
What?
"What do you mean?" "There's bones everywhere. Do you mind if we take the spot next to you?" "Not at all. Now we're happy to have neighbors." That's fucking freaky. They stay for maybe 2 minutes, look around, get back in their car, and leave. My friend asks, "What the hell was that all
They
about?"
didn't tell him what's up. They're like, yeah.
"Just a bunch of bones, massacre, no worries." I explained to my friend what the girl said at that moment. We look down and see a huge femur bone under our feet.
Oh, no.
Possibly a cow. Well, us being a little cryptic, decided to go check out what they were talking about. We get about 100 yards back through the windy camp, and there it is. Full-blown animal carcasses everywhere, some scattered, some still whole, one pile of what looked like fox fur, and another deer body still in a trash bag. Our theory is that it's where they dump all the roadkill they scrape up off the highway, but we didn't figure this until a few days later. Nonetheless, if there's that many bodies here, from whatever cause, then other predatory animals know they're here too. I don't want to be around when they come by for dinner. We decide to pack up and find a different camp.
That's creepy, man.
Yeah. Free campsite number 2. We drive for about an hour or so, still in the middle of nowhere, and haven't seen a single car this entire time. No houses, just old country roads and pastures. Mind you, the sun is starting to set. The road turns to dirt for a bit. We cross the cattle guard and see the national park sign. Sweet. It's a national park and it's free. Can't be too bad. My friend thinks it looks a little sketchy, but we're ready to relax and get some grub. So I hit a left and start up the hill to the national park. Looks like it's only about 2 miles from the map. Start going up this road, go around a few curves, the brush on the side starts getting thicker and thicker, and the road starts to become rough. Now, to put this in perspective, we're in my fairly new Chevy Cruze, manual transmission, that is less than a foot clearance from the ground. About a quarter mile in and we high center on a huge rock. Okay,
Oh, damn.
as long as this doesn't get any worse, I think we can manage. No possible way to turn around or back out anyway, so let's just keep going. Of course, it gets worse. Every rock and trench we hear the car just scrape and stutter and stall. I'm clinching the wheel, she's clinching the handle, all the brush on the sides of us is now dead and eerie, and the sun is almost gone behind us. 30 terrifying minutes later, we finally make it to the top flat that is supposed to be a campsite. It's about a 10-square-foot clearing in the dead brush, and in front of us, a cliff. We're still freaked out about the dead animals, and now we feel like we're in a plot of some low-budget horror film, literally trapped on top of this hill. It's dark, and neither of us ever want to get out of the car. We decide we cannot get our minds right to stay here. Even from this cliff top, we can't see a single house or car light. We make a 10-point turn between the brush and boulders and the cliff.
10-point turn.
Manage to get back on the path and very slowly and carefully.
Austin Powers?
Yeah, in the fucking tunnel. Crap ourselves all the way back down that damned hill. We in the car miraculously survive, and we head another 2 hours back to the closest town and sleep in the Walmart parking lot.
Ah, yes. We've all done that.
Good old Wally World.
This one is from Deleted. I live by the Adriatic coast of Italy. One summer night of 2013, I was with some friends on the beach, having a party, when at around 1 a.m., I climbed the rocks to find a place to piss. Yeah, I've been there. I've been there. There was a full moon, and I could see very clearly. I walked away from the beach until I saw a small cove, a small sandy bay, invisible from the inland, but easily reachable from the rocks. I thought it was the best spot to relieve my bladder, and I went there. As I neared, I distinctly saw that there was a man, a fat, very big man in his 50s, sitting in the sand doing absolutely nothing.
What?
His head tucked in his arms. I should have known better, but I got close and asked if he needed anything, thinking he might have been feeling unwell. He raised this bull-like head and started screaming madly to get away from him, lest he be killed by cracking your head on the rocks.
Jesus Christ.
I scrambled and ran like crazy back to my friends. I turned backwards and was relieved to find that he was not following me. We called the police, who came and discovered that he was a mentally ill person who hadn't taken his medication, and his family had declared him missing in the afternoon. They managed to reassure him without resorting to violence and escorted him back to his habitation. It was the only time that I've really feared for my life.
Yeah, that would put some things into perspective for you.
Gonna crack your head on some rocks.
This is from Spinal Jellyfish. I was driving across country alone on the 10. It was in the middle of the desert. My car said I only had about 20 miles left in gas, so I pulled off to the first place I'd seen for the last hour. Since I was young, sick, and a woman, I made the rule that any time I stopped for gas, I would only pay at the pump and would never leave my car or go inside anywhere aside from the hotels I stayed at. So I swipe my card, and as it's processing, the transaction cancels, and it prompts me to see the cashier. Uh-oh. I try again, and halfway through typing in my zip code, it cancels and tells me again to go see the cashier. I look towards the convenience store and see it has broken windows. It's boarded up and is completely abandoned.
Oh, I'm out.
Even the tall station sign is torn apart. I spot someone inside peering at me from between the boards, and the second I see them, they jump away.
Mouth agape.
They clearly didn't want to be seen, but kept trying to get me to come into the abandoned station by canceling the transaction. Nope. Got back in my car and by some miracle made it to the next station 30 miles away.
Yep.
That's fucking freaky. Hello, Ginger. Apparently your cat decided to be our special guest.
She loves you now. Good.
She's always loved me. She's going to rub your face all over my laptop, huh?
This one is from Way of Sioux. A few years ago, a friend and I went and explored a nearby limestone cave. I had been there before, but never gone very deep. I had read of a waterfall, which eventually led to an expansive area beyond, so we set out to try to find the path. Since we've never been on this route, we took turns going forward and checking back to avoid missing points of no return without one of us being above with a rope to toss it down. After the familiar route was behind us, we found a tight climb down. The squeeze was like going from the front seat to the back seat in a compact sedan that is vertical. No problem. Next, we found a tunnel, wide but short. We took our packs and dragged them behind our feet while we crawled maybe 10 to 15 meters. It was getting a little claustrophobic, but we knew what we were getting into. We came to a small opening about the size of half a bathroom. This space we could stand in, and so it was a bit of a relief. The path forward was a small square tunnel, the same height as the previous route, but maybe 2 meters wide. We jokingly called it the coffin crawl. This route required us to go one behind the other and led to a 90-degree turn. At the turn, I could see the path continued on past the range of my headlamp, but mostly all seemed level and safe. At this point, slowly it became apparent the path was getting more narrow, ever so slightly. If we wanted to turn back, we would have to crawl backwards single file. I could not speculate how far we crawled, but it seemed like a very long ways until I could see a small opening ahead, maybe the size of a cramped coat closet, but 2/3 the height. At this point, that space was looking pretty comforting because it would mean that we could at least turn around if we decided to go back. Right before the coming closet-sized space was the tightest squeeze I have ever tried in a cave. I had to place one arm ahead and drag one to get my shoulders to fit diagonally. As my light illuminated the closeted space, I could see a single stalagmite in the center and some bats resting, oh Lord, on its walls and sloped ceiling. Small mouse-eared bats were infrequent but not shocking sight until our voices disturbed them and they decided to exit past our prone, one by one bodies. Their fluttering should have been non-threatening, but in combination with the inability to get the fuck out of there, it became very unsettling. It took a lot of mental control to avoid panicking from the lack of space, apparent lack of air, and astro heebie-jeebies.
Heebie-jeebies.
Never heard of that?
Never heard of heebie-jeebies?
No, astro heebie-jeebies.
Oh, it's like space heebie-jeebies.
They're not in space,
From
Brendan.
space.
They're not in space.
The heebie-jeebies are.
After the bats had passed, and I had caught my breath and sanity, we entered the small opening. Upon the single stalagmite was a small note, the torn corner of a piece of notebook paper. The note read in blue pen, "Nothing here." We had not found the path we sought, and instead found nothing.
That's it?
Yeah, they found nothing.
Damn. Dude, your cat is shedding like a mofo. My cat's going to be pissed.
Don't bite that wire. You don't bite wires.
Don't ruin another wire, cat. Okay, this is from Executive 313. I used to run bread for a big bread company, and I started at 3 a.m.
Gotta make that bread.
I had to drive to a few remote stores in little towns surrounding my town. I was about halfway through the 50-mile drive to the next town. It was dark out, and there are no houses around for a long way any direction. I look on the side of the road ahead of me and see a backhoe, which was odd in itself. Then I notice his bucket is super high, and as I'm getting closer, I realize he's gutting a cow that is hanging from the bucket.
What the
Good Lord.
Cow guts.
Mind you, this is fucking like in the AM. Now, I happen to have grown up around ranching, so I wasn't too freaked out. So for some reason, I decided to slow down and see if this guy needs some help. I can't explain this decision. When I stop next to him, he just smiles and waves. So I do the same thing, and I ask, "Need a hand?" He just cracks up laughing, like hysterical knee-slapping laughing.
What the
For some reason, I start laughing too now.
Oh, this is weird.
We're two guys cracking up laughing, one covered in blood, the other with a truck full of bread.
Do you like the smell of copper?
The reality of this situation makes its way into my sleep-deprived brain, and I hit the gas and get out of there. I thought about it and realized this guy drove a tractor into the middle of nowhere to kill someone else's cow. He was probably poaching this thing, and he just got to load the thing into the front bucket and drive this shit back to his house at fucking 3 a.m.
That's a lot of free meat, though.
Yeah. Who knows how far away he has to drive this thing. No idea what the hell was happening, but the whole thing was pretty creepy thinking back. Now that... Holy shit.
Can you imagine?
you wake up, you're like, I'm going to steal a cow today.
I'm going to kill a cow.
So you
steal the meat.
You drive your backhoe to this guy's house, pick up a cow, you gut it. Some guy in a fucking bread truck's like, "Hey, do you need help?" And you just start laughing.
I do.
Because you're massacring this cow to take home.
Help. I need a lot of help.
He's like, "You're going to help me murder this cow?" That's actually... That's an interesting story. I'm going to read this one because it's only one sentence, but it's creepy. From Cellar Door 35, ripped female clothes on the side of a country lane opposite some woods. That would be creepy.
Yikes. This one is from Deleted, an abandoned elementary school in the middle of the woods. I found it when I was around 10 years old while exploring at my dad's hunting club in the backwoods of Alabama. The odd thing about it was that it didn't seem to have a road leading to it or even a place to park cars, but everything inside was from the 60s and 70s. It also seemed to be abandoned quickly. Books were still opened on the desks, shoes still in the cubbies, and papers still on the teacher's desk. I actually took a lot of the books that weren't weather damaged and brought them home with me. I remember asking my dad about it a few years later, and he knew about it, but said it gave him the creeps, so he never went near it. My dad left the hunting club a year later, so I never had the chance to check it out a second time. Hey, that's creepy, man. That's creepy as hell.
I'm going to find an abandoned school. All right, this is from Warcrow999. Okay, I got one for you guys. I live in a rural area about 30 miles west of Palm Springs in Southern California. My cousin and I decided to go hike in some hills that are roughly 20 minutes north in an area called Oak Glen. There was no trail to get back into the hills. We actually had to trespass on a fire camp and follow a stream up towards the hills. We start climbing the hills and reach the peak of a particularly steep hill. I realize we are way far away from where I parked the car, and I don't even know where the road is.
Dude, where's my car?
On top of all that, there's a heavy fog rolling in, and we only have about 35 minutes of light left. Yeah, that's smart. We attempt to take a shortcut down the hill by sliding on our butts down a steep slope.
In there.
And to our dismay, okay, it's oddly specific. I've done that before. I've been there. Gone down a steep hill on my ass. And to our dismay, we end up on the side of a 30-foot rock wall. Just a weird way to interject. Long story short, we managed to scale down the rock wall, but not before a football-sized rock falls on my cousin's head.
What the fuck?
He starts bleeding pretty heavily and seems a bit disoriented. The fucking hill they were sliding down.
Yeah, just a rock hits his head? A football-sized rock just hits him in the head.
We start walking the direction that we think the car is in. The fog is heavy all around us now, and we're not sure we're going the right way. My cousin is bleeding from his head, and all of a sudden we come across this long 40-foot building with thick concrete walls set mostly below ground level like a bunker. In the middle of a forest? The windows had bars on them, and the door was heavy steel. My cousin wanted to check it out, but I was getting a total bad vibe from it. He was saying something was drawing him towards it. I don't really believe in the supernatural, but I wouldn't let him go in. Just a super eerie feeling. Shortly after we passed the house, the fog let up a bit, and we luckily stumbled on a little foot trail. Weird note, we went back a couple weeks later during full daylight and looked for the place, but seriously could not find it again. We hiked around there for hours. Second weird note, my wallet fell out of my pocket when we were sliding down the hill. Back when we were far away from any trails. My ID showed up in the mail a week later in an envelope with no note or sending address.
What the fuck?
I love the comment. Sorry, that might have just been a weather station. They put the bars in the windows to keep the creepy guys and the vandals out because they're unused for most of the time.
Oh, okay. All
Trying
right.
to keep you out, creeper.
All right, this one is from Deleted. While studying abroad, a friend of mine wanted help on doing a photo shoot on a derelict building in the outskirts of the city.
I love your fucking derelict. Hey, motherfuckers.
The building was a small, rundown office building with most of the outer walls covered in brick, all entrances as well. Will you shut the fuck up, Buddha? She had the idea of wanting to walk around with a camera and explore, and I went with her. Upon arrival, shortly, I noticed that on the ground there was a lot of used needles.
Oh, okay. It's one of those meth grounds.
Weird. Really gross ones, with brown, dried blood, etc. This shady place must have been a popular shooting up place with the local junkies. Then we found on one of these brick-laden walls an entrance that had been made into the stairway of the building. Somebody just tore a hole in the wall. In some surge of bravery, we decided to go in to get some pictures. The stairway was dark because all the windows were covered. The building had been stripped of most of the valuable material, so it was just a concrete stairway. We started to make our way to the second floor when we heard a loud shuffling sound upstairs, like somebody rising up from the floor. We immediately turned around and practically jumped through the hole and ran out as fast as we could. Thinking back, it was just probably some junkie taking a nap, and we scared each other. But holy hell, I've never felt adrenaline as strong as that. First of all, they could have been in danger either way.
Yeah.
So, what do you mean? What did you think it was? The creature from the deep?
I mean, it could have been. You don't know. Could have been the needle monster.
The needle monster. All these syringes amalgamated into a giant syringe that's going to poke you.
Okay, this is from Deleted, and it starts with, so for those of you wondering, this is my story. I was wondering if this was his story. My father, my brother, and I were crab fishing deep in the jungles of Puerto Rico.
It sucks when you get crabs.
A new place we had never gone to in an effort to get some lucky finds of crabs. We had to go through an initial barbed wire boundary to really get to where the crabs were, and after that we split up in an effort to cover as much ground as we could. We spent so much time that I found the sun had set, and the forest was so impossibly dark, if no light was on, you couldn't see anything beyond 3 feet in any direction. All alone as I trekked deeper in, phone in hand as I was redditing during the down moments where I couldn't hear any crabs rustling about in the brushes, I came across an odd cemetery foundation, which after looking it over, was just an abandoned house project which never got past the cement floor and a portion of a wall. Off in the distance of this place I found a complete cement structure, which was overgrown with vines and completely isolated from anything human-related.
What's up with these random buildings?
I don't know, man. I took a picture of it from the outside before starting to investigate it. Obviously, with my knowledge of terrible horror films, I knew that I should be very careful when peering my head into one of the 3 compartments that it had. In hindsight, horror movie knowledge should have told me to just bolt out of there and get company. From what I could tell, it was supposed to be a lavatory, which never got completed. Weird thing was in the first room, there was a square toilet-like structure with an incredibly bad smell coming from it. Cockroaches were all over the place, which made me legitimately frightened that some might fall on me. The room in the middle was just empty and square, though the third had the layout and square of a shower room. What was really odd about the whole thing, aside from what I'd already seen, was that in the square toilet of the first room, I peered inside with my flashlight, and there was an entire room underneath the entire cement structure, about a 12-foot drop underneath the cement square. There was some trash down there, but the smell was much stronger closer to the hole. I tried to see as much as I could, but there was only a dirt floor 12 feet underneath the actual floor that I was standing on. The weirdest part about that was, I looked around the entire structure, and there was no way to the underground chamber except through the square hole of about 2 feet wide. I heard some rustling happening nearby, and though I checked if it was a crab, I knew that I needed to leave already, and I did.
I'd hella get a rope and go back. This one is from Reddit while working 23. I was driving to visit my sister who lives in Missouri. It's late, and I admit I was a bit tired, but not bad enough to where I should have pulled over for a hotel. I get to the stretch of road where it's just cornfield on either side of me. I have directions to drive straight and take the next left. I drive, and I drive, and I drive, and I drive. No lefts, but multiple rights. Every now and again, there might be a left, but it's a small man-made road that wasn't big enough for my car. I start getting a bit confused on where I'm supposed to turn because I was driving straight for like 45 minutes and still no left turn in sight. I pass a left turn that's big enough for my car, but was a dirt road. I figured, hell, that's probably it. I take the next right and end up driving around a fucking cornfield paved road maze. I ended up lost for about 2 hours before I finally found the small dirt road. I drive up it and find myself at a house. This was obviously not the right left, so I threw it in reverse and went to leave when I saw a light from my field of view and movement. I look over and it's a large group of people, over 10, standing around a fire and coming my way. It's like 3 a.m. I was lost. I've been driving in a maze for about 2 hours. I was tired and I had enough for one night, so I drove off. I got lost again and ended up driving for about 2 hours in the wrong direction, found a gas station, waited for the morning, and rang my sister to help me find where she had lived. As you can tell, this was before cell phones and GPS became super prevalent.
This is from D. Jones 0305. The high school I went to has a bunch of woods behind it. I lived in rural Ohio, so cornfields and forest were of no shortage. It was common for the cross-country runners to take their runs through parts of the woods during practice. My ex was part of the team and would take runs through the woods frequently. At one point, she told me that if you take an hour or two to meander through the woods, there's an abandoned playground somewhere in the middle. Yeah, that's fucking creepy. Not really in a clearing, but just built into the woods, like someone just stuck the equipment where it fit. She told me stories of how the runners would avoid that area and go around it in a wide circle if they knew they were getting close. Supposedly, as you got closer to the grounds, you would start to hear footsteps behind you that would get faster as you approached the playground. Me, being a high schooler and dumb, I grabbed my friend and told him that we should go to this place and see what's up, so we did. I mean, would you go check it out? You heard that there was a playground in the forest?
I go down the fucking slide.
Took a stupid amount of time to walk there. Really was an hour or so before we got there. When we got there, we didn't hear any footsteps, so we started to think that it was all a rumor started by the runners. The only equipment there was 2 swing sets and one of those merry-go-round things that bullies strap nerds to in movies and spin them around.
Yeah.
It's quite the descriptor
Yeah.
there. Okay. Since we had walked all the way there, we decided to take a load off and hop on the swings for some harmless fun for a few minutes. So we got on the swings and went about our business. Everything was cool for about 2 minutes. At that point, we were swinging at close to the peak of our swing height. As my friend swings backward and is coming back in his downswoop to go forward, right when he hits the ground where the swing normally just sits. That's such a weird sentence, just like when on your way back down. His swing completely halted, like it was grabbed by someone from behind saying, "All right, time's up." Just halted. Mine continued to swing, but I saw that and jumped the fuck off. My friend and I bolted the fuck out of there, shitting our pants. And as we ran, we started to hear footsteps on either side of us. Fast at first, but diminished once we got far enough away. We never went back. Typing this as I'm sitting in bed. Gave myself chills.
This one is from Aunt Faintly. I was driving back to school one fall. It's about a 12-hour drive, and I was doing it all in one go. There was a lot of middle of the nowhere and teeny tiny towns on this drive. I really had to pee, and there hadn't been anything for quite a while. Finally, There is one of those freeway signs with food/gas/lodging listed for the next exit. I'd been probably driving for 9 hours at this point. The sign said there was a gas station and a fast food restaurant. Those have bathrooms, so I take the exit. Usually those signs mean there is something right off the freeway, but I ended up following the sign for several miles and finally see the fast food restaurant. It's just starting to get dark. As I pull into the parking lot, this little cat runs in front of my car, but I'm going slowly enough not to hit it. Parking lot is empty and there isn't much around it. Mostly trees. I get out of the car and see another cat, and then another. There are 30 plus cats that I can see.
Uh-oh.
Probably a lot more. I don't. There are 3 colorings, all black, orange, tabbyish, and grayish colors.
It's like Jeepers Creepers, that first movie when they go up to the old lady's house and it's all the cats. And then she gets fucking chopped by the creeper.
So they vary in size, but other than that, they look basically identical to the other cats of their coloring. They all start staring at me. I took a step forward and they all stepped back about the same amount as my step, and simultaneously. I stepped back, they all moved closer. I walked into the restaurant, get a drink, use the bathroom. I said nothing to the person at the counter like, "There's a lot of cats out there." But she was just sort of like, "Oh." So I go back to the car, and they are all still there, and sit up and stare at me again, and shift positions as I move.
It's a lot of fucking cats.
Oh.
Thanks for the input there.
So you want to supersize that, or? This time I noticed there are giant food bowls filled with kibble around the trees just past the parking lot.
That'll do it.
Someone is coming and feeding this cat colony often, and a lot of food, but it was very strange. I got in my car and found the freeway. That's it. She found a cat colony and it scared her.
This is from Kenny K94. I went on a midnight walk with my girlfriend. The park by her house had a dirt trail that led up a small mountain. It was about a 30-minute walk to the top, but the view overlooking the city was gorgeous. At the top, the dirt path became paved concrete with a small sitting area. We stayed at the top for about 30 minutes. Upon leaving is where things got creepy. As we started to head back down, at the point where concrete met dirt path, there was a large pile of trash bags in a crescent shape in the corner of the path's intersection.
The old moon shape.
It was not there when we first arrived. The pile was much too large and in the way for someone who likes to cut corners of paths to not notice. My girlfriend remarked at how the shape resembled a dead body and asked me if I noticed it on the way up. I was very sure that it was not there 30 minutes prior when we had arrived. I was extremely sure. Nonetheless, there was no reason to freak my anxiety-prone girlfriend out, so I laughed and said, yeah, it's been there and was probably just trash. Visibility was extremely low, probably about 5 yards. I didn't want to freak her out, but I was pretty tilted. I got heckled for being drunk and not listening to her. But in actuality, I was looking and listening for any sign of people around us. In my own head, I was telling myself that I'm just being paranoid, that it was probably there and I didn't notice. But at the same time, I was also sure that it wasn't. I'm sorry I didn't have time to listen to your story about Jesse from work. I'm worried about our safety at the moment. We made it back to our car without running into anybody. And I kind of laughed at myself for being so worried for nothing and also felt the relaxation of my butt muscles that had been clenched for the last 30 minutes. A few days later, the local news covered a dead body found near a park in Anthem. Holy shit.
Oh my God.
At the top of the mountain, guys, it was actually a dead body. Literally getting chills just typing that. It was actually a fucking dead body. Thanks to my girlfriend that didn't watch the news or she would have shit herself.
This one is from Irritable Tom. Well, I have a few of these. First, I was driving to my friend's ranch for New Year's Eve party. This was down in Eagles Pass near the Texas-Mexico border. It was pouring rain and I was creeping down a back road, high beams on. Something jumped in front of my truck, stopped for a second, then darted back into the woods. It was about 3 feet tall, white, and briefly stood on 2 legs. Pretty sure Gollum lives in South Texas. Freaked me out. 2. An abandoned and torn tent in the outback of Australia. On a road trip up the west coast, we took a little detour inland near Carnarvon. See the red sands and such. Went down a dirt road, nothing for miles, and found a tent. We hesitantly approached it and saw that it had been torn open on one side. There was a filthy pillow and some scattered clothes inside of it, but it was firmly staked down. Looked like it had been there for a while. Third, back in Texas, and near Enchanted Rock, walking around the woods with some friends when we nearly stumbled into a pit full of rattlesnakes. I don't know if you've ever seen a snake den, but they tend to ball up into a horrifying Lovecraftian nightmare. I have pictures of this somewhere. I'll see if I can find them when I get home.
Okay, and we'll end with this story from New Q. What makes my experience creepy isn't what we saw, but what we never saw.
It's about what we learned along the way.
We went on a space cruise, which was the term for smoking pot and going on long drives. We get off the highway on a ranch exit about 15 miles from the nearest town and climbed a long dirt road, trying to find access to a scenic-looking cliff area to spend a few hours lost in pseudo-existential conversation and Pink Floyd's music. After about 30 minutes of driving around, we finally make it near our intended destination.
Hey, you, out there on your own, sitting naked by the phone.
Flash forward about 45 minutes, we're pretty stoned now and have settled in nicely. There's a break in the music as the CD changer did its thing. I remember thinking that silence was pretty eerie. Suddenly there's a loud thump and the back of the SUV dips down as if something very heavy had suddenly jumped on the tailgate. The interior lights come on, the indicator of the dashboard starts flashing that the tailgate is open, and we start panicking, start looking around to try and get a visual on the uninvited guest, but the interior lights are making it hard. I'm not sure how long we sat there trying to make sense of the situation before I put the car in reverse and hauled out of there. We didn't see anything on the way out, but we stopped at the bottom of the mountain under the city lights of the on-ramp and to do an inspection. The back bumper was deformed and the latch on the hatchback door had been damaged so that it no longer latched closed. To this day, I still don't know what the hell hit us out there.
What in the world?
It was a deer. All right, well, that is going to wrap us up for the evening. Thank you very much for joining us. As Cleet mentioned, we're getting really, really close, roughly 36 subscribers away from going to the Clown Motel in Nevada. So we're getting really close. And thank you very much for our 9 supporters of the show. Modelo Time, Cleet Meat, Claytor, Lord of Soup, Curtis and Laura, Mothman, Devin, Laura, Conklin family, and Lou. The constant support of the show is amazing and definitely helps us out, so thank you very much. If you have any suggestions on topics or coverage that you want to do or have a story you want to share, write into us at entertheabysspod@gmail.com.
Everybody likes Cleat Meat. And anyways, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe as it really helps us get us out there. And as always, thank you for entering the abyss.
Until next time.